Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished professional and leader from the world of travel, talking to us today from Dubai, but lives in Singapore and from the Netherlands, Mr. Hannes Bos. Hannes, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for having me.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Hannes is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of TravelGenius Private Limited. He's the Chief Executive Officer and founder of SpotQuest, and he's a global advisor of Billion Strong. So Hannes, my first question to you is, what inspired you to enter the travel industry? And how has your journey been across 11 different countries?
Thank you, Ashutosh. Yes, no, time passes fast, right? I never intended to live in 11 different countries, work and live. But in fact, I did. Born in South Korea and my formative years in Holland and in the Netherlands. I'm just always very interested and eager to learn and to explore the new. And obviously, living in a very small town or village with a few thousand people in Holland doesn't really expose you to anything like that. And so, I just packed my luggage and applied for jobs and studied abroad. And in that way, I collected 11 countries around the world, especially in Asia and the Middle East, Africa. And I'm continuing that journey because I think it's the only way to really enjoy just the balance of life and work rather than either or. So, enjoying both. Yeah.
Fascinating. And, when I was reading about you, I thought I must ask you this question, that was there a pivotal moment in your career that significantly influenced your own professional trajectory?
There are many, but I would say I lived in China and I lived in India, in Noida.
Okay.
And I think those two experiences were the most profound, I must say. Again, coming from a very small town in Holland, and Western Europe in that as the context, that's a very narrow view of the world. And then when you do live actually and therefore travel extensively in India and in China, you learn that there are 1,000+ cities in China and 1,000+ cities in India that many people in the world have never heard about. And so, to see those societies change and grow and evolve is truly profound, because the way they solve problems and at the speed that they solve the problems is just unimaginable unless you see that and unless you are actually trying to navigate around every single day for living and for working. And so that was a true profound experience whereby I had an ambition to really solve problems for those type of destinations, both for the people living there, as well as for people in the world to get to know those places, because they otherwise in their lifetime unlikely ever will hear about it or will be interested to even go to the 1,000 cities in India and 1,000 cities in China. And so, that was definitely the most profound experience.
Thank you. And tell me a little bit now about TravelGenius and what is the kind of work you do at TravelGenius?
Yeah, that's an extension to what I just said earlier, how to try to connect people around the world. Did my work in travel. I traveled around the world for the last 25 years in the hospitality industry primarily. I thought I should be able to build a location intelligence platform for both businesses and travelers, individuals, to empower them to make easy decisions to navigate and to make decisions on where to go and where to stay. And so that's what I built, global location intelligence. I tend to describe it, which is of course not the case, but for ease of reference, that we rebuilt the Google map from a travel industry perspective for travel professionals in the B2B space and for travelers such as yourself and myself. And so, of course, the Google map is the Google map, but we added a travel layer to that really helps to navigate you for decisions both in where to go and where to stay and what to do and when best to go in order to have the best experience, no matter what your situation. That is the platform that we built.
Well said. And what about SpotQuest?
Yeah, SpotQuest is our B2B entity within TravelGenius. So we created one global travel intelligence, location intelligence platform. And we have two entities, Genius, our B2C traveler recommendation platform, and B2B SpotQuest, the location intelligence platform for companies in the travel space. And SpotQuest, really the quest for the right spot. You can imagine many restaurant operators, hotels, and other venues within the travel space. They need to continuously decide where they operate, what building, which city, and should they change the model and change the restaurant into a hotel or hotel into a different type of brand. And so the quest for the right spot is SpotQuest that really enables executives around the world to make these decisions within a light beat, within a heartbeat, sorry. Within minutes rather than within weeks, because it takes obviously weeks to analyze these type of business cases,
right?
To collect all the information and to make these decisions. And we are trying to automate that, of course, also with the help of AI. We are in a process, in a journey to make sure that a process that takes currently 3-4 weeks in average anywhere and around the world, from data collection to analyzing to really facilitating the decision-making process to making the actual decision where to operate, which building to buy or which building to operate. That 3-4 weeks period, we try to cut into 5 to 10 minutes in terms of the process, of course. And that's SpotQuest.
Thank you. And, most organizations, most founders, focus either on B2B or B2C. You are focusing on both B2B and B2C. How do you differentiate your B2B and B2C strategies?
Well, so first the why, because to your point, most companies would not do what you just said, trying to solve both problems. The reason why we did both is because simply our location intelligence platform is the same in the backend. So we created one single global platform. Right, see it as Google Map again for the ease of the reference of the viewers. The Google Map can be used by individuals around the world and is, of course, used actively by any business in the world. But Google has, of course, built only one global platform and not created two, but of course, adapted the interface and the names and the products for the different use cases. And so we did the same. We set out and we started with SpotQuest for the B2B space. We created that global platform and we realized very quickly that the same underlying platform could be used not easily, but could be adapted and applied towards B2C as well. And hence, that's why we did both. Now, how do we change? Of course, to your point, we had to, of course, create a different interface, a different brand, a different go-to-market. And in the back end, we had to write different algorithms in order to make sure that our recommendations can be used correctly for B2B and B2C use cases. And even within that, of course, every segment within B2B and every segment in B2C, we had to adjust as well.
Wow, fascinating. And my next question is that, given the rapid advancement of technology and consumer trends in the travel industry, how do you manage to stay ahead?
I hope I am. I think it's time will tell. And I think it's very hard actually to do that because of the profound and exponential change that everyone, of course, talks about within AI. First and foremost, I think what I do from a strategy perspective is to define, as they call BHAGs, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals, right? And so dream big. That is what I have been taught by my mother, first and foremost. And I really apply that every single day. Some people call me crazy because of that thing. Sure, really, are you gonna, right? But I think to stay ahead of the curve, as they popularly say, then you really have to make sure you set out a very long-term, big, audacious goal. And so that's what I did first and foremost. Obviously, to build a global intelligence platform, you have to be a little bit crazy to say, let's do that, right? And so I think if you do that and not really look to tomorrow, but really to the day after, and really say this is what it should be, irrespective of the 100 barriers and 100 reasons why it can't be done, right? This is the number one part. And number two, of course, on a more practical level, LinkedIn is a great source of inspiration, and there are a lot of experts in every single field of interest, and I subscribe to those publications. It's free in most cases, and in every single domain, there are 2, 3, 4, 5 experts around the world, and so what a wonderful way to freely subscribe to that. So that's more in a practical sense, but really setting out big goals. A bit naive and a bit crazy, but you have to set out what it should be, irrespective of any constraint, and then work backwards, slowly but gradually working towards a roadmap to achieve that. And that is what we have done 5 years ago, and that is what we will continue to do. And so I think to manage my own expectations therefore as well is, I therefore think I never reached the finishing line in that regard, and that's okay. But as long as you have that mix, I think you can stay ahead of the curve, for the lack of a better way of saying it, and manage the ongoing changes in expectation, both from the consumers as well as the opportunities technology, as you rightly asked, will provide.
Thank you. What a great response. My next question, Hannes, is that, your customer profile is probably across multiple age levels. And, I, for example, I'm a baby boomer, and my children are millennials, and now there are the Gen Zs. My expectations of travel are very different from the experiential-based travel that the young are looking for.
Yeah.
How do you handle this diversity of expectations of your customers?
I think that's very difficult because there's so many combinations to that, especially from the methodology, right? Some use an app or an app only, like in particular in China, they would only use apps, right? Some will use a website, some will still go to a travel agent, no matter what, right? And so in that sense, you can't really solve that because across generations and across countries and cultures, there are different preferences, and that will remain like that. And so we are not trying to solve that part as much. What we are trying to solve is the ability for anyone to ask anything to our platform. Okay. And that, I think, crosses through and solves the problem that you just mentioned. Because I can't predict what you will ask and what you need, because every individual is different. And even you, Ashutosh, yourself, when you travel alone or with your family, you have different needs, right? And God forbid, but tomorrow you can become disabled to an extent, right? And so then you have different needs again. And so I can't solve that, but what we have solved with the help of artificial intelligence, as well as, of course, a killer engineering team in Noida, is to really create an interface that allows you to ask us anything, and that we have not, that we don't force you through filters into saying you must be looking for family holidays, or you must be looking for business hotels, or you must be looking for activities or food. No, because even in India, as we both know, every 100 kilometers, there's a different cuisine, the same as in China. And so you can't really say, well, Ashutosh, you must be looking for Indian food. That is really ridiculous. Yes. And so we go well beyond generations. We really try to address the fact that if you're 100 kilometers apart from where you are today, the nuances of expectations in terms of food is different.
Correct.
And so in technical and technology terms, it is how can you make sure that people can interact with our platform in a natural language search way? Like you type in Google search bar, you can type in anything. And so while we haven't solved every single question in travel yet, we have enabled our platform to allow anyone, any age, with any preference to ask us anything, either by voice or typing in. And so that is, I think, in essence, the way we have tried to address your problem. And two, recognizing that every 100 kilometers, there's a different need. and every person has a different need, even themselves, whenever they travel, and therefore making sure that we create a large language model for travel only. So we are not saying, oh, let's link it to ChatGPT and hopefully that will answer all. It won't, right? And so we developed our own large language model to make sure that we address the nuances that Ashutosh says today versus tomorrow versus the day after. And so that is what we did to try to cross that. And again, to my point earlier, it's an infinite journey. But I think 80-20 rule, we will be able to cover most of those questions anywhere in the world. Yeah.
Fascinating. And, when I was preparing for my conversation with you, I was also very, very fascinated by you doing some very niche work as well. And, the role of TravelGenius in advocating for travelers of determination and the LGBTQ plus community. Tell me a little bit about how are you handling these very, very finely defined niches?
Well, it depends on what you define as niche. I appreciate and accept it's a niche in many definitions. But the segment or the group that you just described, as we both know, is in size easily 1 billion people, right? And so then you can't call that anymore a niche. But I appreciate and accept why you call it a niche.
I stand corrected. 12% of the world, what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, no, but you're correct as well, because obviously the way current intermediaries, OTAs, right, like Make My Trip or Booking.com or Ctrip and TripAdvisor, the way they help us to travel around the world, they take a very generic stroke and a very general approach. And in that case, in that sense, they are not very interested to create a platform for the niches, the specific needs these niche segments have, except with some basic filters, right? Is the hotel accessible? Yes, no. Is this an LGBTQ plus friendly hotel? Yes, no. That is, of course, helping, but not really giving a solution to the needs of these segments. And so, yes, I'm ambitious, and I feel the need to be able to empower anyone to have a great travel experience. And the 1 billion plus people is that other group, anyone. I can easily solve something for the mass and copy a platform, but I don't think there will be any traction because then you have to compete based on brand and on marketing spend, and I will never be able to do that. But if I can solve meaningfully, really solutions for people of determination, disabled travelers or elderly travelers or LGBTQ, well beyond a filter, yes, no, I think they will eventually come to our platform and feel delighted and be able to do what I have done the last 25 years, travel around the world and have a great experience. And that is why and what we did for the niches. But luckily, it's a 1 billion plus society strong. So it's up to me to fail to address this community.
Absolutely. You also do another very interesting thing, that you integrate environmental sustainability into your travel recommendations. Tell me a little more about this.
Yeah, just to set expectations, of course, that's a journey. We are not yet to the stage that we are. And so from a BHAG perspective, the big, hairy, audacious goals, this is what we want to be able to do completely around the world. But we have laid the foundations in order to be able to do so. And so there are several things in that. But one of the most important parts of sustainable travel, and I would say, is to make sure that the local communities stand to benefit from the travel, and that not everyone goes to the Eiffel Tower or to the Taj Mahal. That is, of course, natural demand, right? And the people, the businesses on that venue and around stand to benefit most from travelers traveling around the world, both domestically and internationally. What our travel platform is aiming to do is to recommend where best to go, when best to go, and what to do. And therefore, we can really, in a dynamic way, recommend you some local experiences well beyond the top 10 TripAdvisor activities to do. And so in that sense, I think we help to bridge the sustainable goals in that sense. And two, you have seen, I'm sure, many of those pictures on beaches around the world that are packed with specific segments during holidays because there's overcrowding, right? And so overcrowding is extremely bad for the environment. And so we have built a travel recommendation engine where we recommend by day of travel what is the best day to travel to that spot, not to that destination only, right, to Paris or London, but to that spot. Because we know for every single beach, or for every single street, or for every single national park, when is the peak demand, both at hour of day as well as day in the year, by high season, low season, because of weather and because of food traffic, footfall. And because of that engine, I think we can help manage over time sustainability goals. But currently, by really recommending you, well, Ashutosh, you want to go to this beach in the US or to this national park, we would recommend you not to go this weekend that you were looking for. And I would give you the reasons why, because, and likely you will not go, because I will show you a picture that says, well, do you want to see the mountains or do you want to see people and try to see a little bit of nature? And I'm not exaggerating. Sadly, as we know, this is the reality, right, in Venice and on beaches around the world. And so with AI, we set out an ambition to do that. And so we built a platform whereby for every day of the year, for every hour of the day, we capture and curate how busy it is. And if you do that on a global scale, then link it to the purpose of travel on experiences that you are looking for. This is what we built it in the engine. It's not live yet, and hence the BHAG goals. But we started 4 or 5 years ago with that ambition. And I think by end of the year, that specific engine will be activated, allowing us really to manage sustainability requirements within destinations, as well as giving you a great experience. I think it has to go hand in hand, right? And so that is what we are trying to do.
Fascinating. So time for one more question, and I was trying to decide what to ask you. But since you are a global advisor for Billion Strong, I'm going to shift gears, move away from travel and technology, and ask you, tell me a little bit about your global advisory role for Billion Strong. What does the organization do?
Well, Billion Strong, led and initiated by Deborah Rue, is impressive, right? And the name catches it all, Billion Strong. It's an association or foundation organization that really try to empower disabled people and people in minority to be one voice. Because me individually with a disability, you tend to think you're alone. But in fact, and hence Deborah created a Billion Strong movement, there are more than 12 to 16%, depending who you ask, of global society is having some form of disability.
Wow.
And so this organization is trying to represent them and to become one voice. And so they asked me to be an advisor to that, and I happily and immediately, of course, accepted, because their mission is to empower these 1 billion plus people to be part of society in the way anyone is, and to enable them to partake in travel and in day-to-day life in the way anyone is. And so I think the only way to bridge those many different gaps, right? Take an example of a wheelchair person in a wheelchair. The accessibility for them into venues like restaurants or hotels is one thing, right? And so that's still not very well organized around the world. But equally, they need to get access to the streets and to the parks and to the neighborhoods that anyone can have, as well as to public transportation. And so Deborah started that many years ago, and she saw what we are doing. And I think obviously there's a natural connect. They are having that big vision and being a really caring big voice in the world to represent the Billion Strong. And we are a very practical application solution that is trying to at least make visible and therefore empower anyone with a disability to start partaking in society, in the destinations and hotels and restaurants and museums that are already accessible to a high degree. And so we are trying to be that concrete solution product to bring things to life within the mission and vision of the Billion Strong. And so I'm very pleased to be connected and associated with that because I'm truly believing that we need to empower this niche segment to a very high degree. And I think we can add a little bit of to that by developing and implementing our solution around the world.
Wow. On that note, Hannes, what an amazing conversation I've had with you on travel, on technology, on TravelGenius, on SpotQuest. I love the way you keep going back to your big, hairy, audacious goals. You know, people do tend to talk about them, but I think you are virtually living your BHAG goals. Thank you for speaking to me also about the mission of Billion Strong. I'm going to certainly read a little bit more about it and hopefully reach out to some people there to come and talk to me on my podcast about the mission of Billion Strong. Thank you again for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.